Hey Jay, how are you doing today?
I am wonderful, Natalie.
You know what? Today is a very special day because this is a part of our Heroes Caring for Heroes series, and it's an educational podcast about one of our very favorite organizations.
It is. Today we have with us David Coker, and he is with the Fisher House. They are a fantastic partner for us on this whole series. But David, you got to let me tell the statistics on the Fisher House first,
Yes.
because this is an amazing foundation. Today, there are 95 Fisher Houses that operate around the world. They have served 455,000 military and veteran families. 12 million days of free lodging is what they have offered. 575 million in savings to families. And on any given night, more than 1,300 families can be accommodated at their houses. David, you were the first employee
It's
with
like
the
employee
foundation.
number one.
I know he's not that old either, but
No, he's very young.
Yes, he started as the first employee in 1994. There were 14 houses then. So you've got the whole story. We are so excited to have you and so excited to learn more about the Fisher House.
Well, I'll tell you, I've been so privileged to be a part of the Fisher House story, and when Zach and Elizabeth first started the program, uh, you know, I always tell my staff it's a good day to be in the blessing business because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And Zach uh, had a problem. He was a a millionaire in New York City, but New York City had a lot of millionaires.
Mm-hmm.
And so in trying to think what he could do to give back, he helped create and support the Intrepid Sea Air Space Museum.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, there was a natural relationship with the Navy. And he got to know Admiral Carl Trost, who was the chief of naval operations. And he said, you know what? I really want to do something for the military that'll be a blessing, not just for the Navy, but all the services. What can I do?
Mm-hmm.
And so Admiral Trost went to his staff and said, okay, guys, we've got this question that's been posed and this opportunity. What do I tell them? And they thought about it. And being a smart man, he also went to his wife and said, honey, I've got this offer. What do I do? And she remembered a helicopter, medevac helicopter landing at what was then the National Naval Medical Center at Bethesda.
Yeah.
And the patient comes out on the gurney, and then the family comes out. And it just struck her, here in Washington, D.C., where is that family going to stay? So the answer came back to Zach, we need something like a Ronald McDonald House. Zach said, I'm a builder. My career has been in real estate development in New York. Let me take care of this. And he proffered two houses, one for the Army at Walter Reed Army Medical Center and one for the Navy at the National Naval Medical Center. And as they were building those, he thought about it and said, Army, Navy, maybe the Air Force needs one. And the Air Force said, oh, absolutely. But we need ours in San Antonio, Texas, where our big medical center is. And 3 became 5. And as it continued to grow, Zach's friends, these were all funded. The first 20 houses were funded by Zach writing a check.
Mm-hmm.
And so he proved the value of the program.
Wow.
And as the program got bigger, his friend said, this has got the potential to be something special. You need to create a foundation. And I'm a recovering healthcare administrator.
Oh, God bless you.
Retired from the Army in '94. But when I was stationed at the Army Medical Center in Denver, we received the gift of a house. And I just fell in love with the concept. And I asked my chief of staff if I could be the point person. And through that, it's just been amazing. That first Thanksgiving, Fitzsimmons was a medical center that were known for two things: caring for the older population through our graduate medical education program, but we also had a tremendous NICU.
Mm.
That first Thanksgiving, we had 5 families in the house. The house could support up to 7 families, but they were all NICU babies.
Mm.
And being together at Thanksgiving and sharing the blessing of the care that those children were getting, it is, it just doesn't get any better than that.
Oh.
And we have been able to grow the program and bring an invaluable resource to new communities. If it's one thing we know, it's life happens. When you get that call and you learn that a loved one is ill or injured, you want 2 things. You want the best medical care and you want to be there.
That's right.
The military and VA health systems are 2 of the best in the world. Having a place for families to stay is a little bit more of a challenge.
Yeah.
And that's where we can come in and make a difference.
Wow.
I love that.
The story about the babies kind of gave me the chills, David. So
I was thinking the same thing too. I was like,
that's wonderful.
I love a good story too.
I do too.
I think it's so important because you all are caring for the caregivers, and they're not just families, because they really are, we say they're dual roles, because when you go into something like that, your role changes. You take off your wife hat and your wife and you're and this or and that. And there's a whole bunch of ands. And I can remember, David, trying to figure out when my husband had cancer, where are we going to live when we were going to get his treatment? And so the Fisher House Foundation really answers that question for families, and you don't have to worry about a where.
Yeah.
That's one less stressor. And that is a blessing, because I can tell you, thinking about having to find where am I going to stay while one of the most difficult times of my life is going on, and my loved one, and I have no control over that. That's a gift. That is such a gift. And so you're on the road to 100. It's crazy. It's like, okay. And so, you'll reach 100 Fisher houses next year, and the 100th is still to be determined, is what I hear. So what's the plan for that? And beyond, do you think?
Well, it'll definitely be beyond. We have at least one house at every major military medical center, and there are only so many of those. We actually have 5 houses at the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Yeah. But we've got the military covered. And when we went to the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Zach had gotten a letter from a nurse in Albany, New York, saying, what you're doing for the military is great, but we need that in the VA. Mm. And what better place than your home state of New York? And Zach got the letter and he said, you know what, I'm going to do this. And so he built that one. And we went to the secretary and said, well, do you need any more? And they came back with a list of 70 plus places. And we said, okay, we're good. We're not that good.
Yet. You're not that good yet.
Give us a minute.
Give us your top 10. And that way we know we're building at places that are priority.
Yeah.
And that want the resource that Fisher House brings. So we have gone through that list of 10 every so often, and then the VA gets bold and they'll give us a list of 15.
They get bold.
So right now there are 22 locations that need a Fisher House.
Yeah.
We are building at 3 right now, and we know there'll be another 19. I had always said early on that, boy, if we ever get 100, it's time for me to retire.
No, that's just the beginning.
Maybe 120, 150.
I like that. You're like, I'm just extending it a little.
We'll see how it goes. But no, that we'll celebrate the day when we cut the ribbon on 100, and we might invite a few people out for dinner. But then we've got to get to work the next day and go to that next community, because the program we call it a public-private partnership. We come in, and on government land, we will build this facility that supports the families of those receiving care. In return, the Secretary of the Army, Navy, Air Force, or Veterans Affairs agrees they'll operate and maintain it in perpetuity. And by doing that, it provides the resource for the community served. It keeps the directors and the commanders involved in being a part of the equation. And it lets us focus on the next community that's going to receive the gift of a Fisher House.
Wow. So, Dave, Natalie.
I was just going to say, I do love skin in the game.
I know. Well, let me ask you a question, because I know that I hope that you hear accolades constantly about the program, the homes. We interviewed Pam and Mike Estes, and their son was, they actually stayed in a Fisher House. And during our conversation, they told us about their son's injury, that he was flown from Germany to Texas. And they said, we were able to stay at a Fisher House. We didn't prompt them. We didn't ask them. They just said, we stayed at a Fisher House. And we were like, wow, tell me, how does that occur when you've got someone that's hurt? How do you stay in a Fisher House? How does that process work?
Well, there's a couple of different ways. Hopefully, people will know that there's a program like Fisher House, and we'll ask the question, oh, can I stay there?
Yeah.
At the same time, the commanders appreciate the resource. There's the admission part where you're talking with somebody and they say, oh, do you have a place to stay? Oh, no. Well, here's a Fisher House. Then within 24 hours of being admitted, there's somebody from the discharge planning team and a social worker or chaplain that come by and say, how are you doing? Let's work on getting you out of the hospital. What are your needs? Do you have a place to stay? And of course, the ultimate are the nurses. They know everything that's going on. And if there's somebody camped out in the room, depending upon the acuity of the patient, sometimes you just need to be there. Sometimes you recognize, okay, this family may have a little bit more of a challenge. So there are a lot of touch points where people can be referred to a Fisher House.
Okay.
Sometimes it may take a few days before they learn about it.
Yeah.
And that's why having this opportunity to tell people about the program's so valuable. So, because even if you don't have a member of your family that served in the military, somebody in your circle may be going through a life experience, and to be able to say, well, have you thought about this? And we relish the opportunity, because when you first get that call, your mind goes into a different mode.
Yeah.
You don't think as clearly. The things you're concerned about may not really be number one on the list, but they are in your mind.
Yeah.
And what I found is those normal daily activities, being able to get the cup of coffee, to talk with somebody else with a shared experience, and being able to come back to a place, it just gives you a little sense of stability. And it makes you stronger to face the challenges of the day. You see somebody going through a similar experience, and maybe, with cancer treatment, they're in their third, fourth week, and it gives you hope that you're going to get there.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing thing. We build the house, and we really, then our job is to get out of the way and just let the family support one another.
Wow.
Because good things are going to happen.
Well, and that's, in talking with Michelle Horn, who works with you, and she's just she is a blessing as well, both her and Mary. I think one of the things is, it's funny. It's like going to church, it's building, but it is the purpose behind it. It is the love that's put into it. And it is the people inside it that really help heal and support, because it's not just respectfully. It's not just a hotel. It is a place for
we don't use the H word.
Yeah. You're really, we're a Fisher House. So it's true though, because it's a place to come together. And you're right about shared experience and the healing and the value in relationship.
Absolutely.
Oh, there are just so many stories, and the highlight is always meeting the families. I remember one time went in, and the first thing you do is meet the folks, and of course, um, it's they're always very gracious. But I remember meeting this one young veteran in Houston, and he just said, "Sir, I want to thank you for saving my life." I said, "Excuse me, tell me more." And he explained he lived several hours away down in the valley, and he learned he had cancer and that he'd have to come to Houston for several weeks for treatment. He knew he couldn't afford to bring his wife and stay in the big city. So he was just going to accept what time he had left. And then there was a Fisher House and he could stay for free. And he came and he got the treatment. And that morning, he had been told he's in remission. You can go home now. And so we have the ability to change the path people decide to take. And it's an amazing thing. We've learned a lot from the people who've graced our houses. And I remember in an interview being asked, isn't it tough to be around people who are facing such challenges? And you do visualize and you do see people in very difficult circumstances, but the way they approach it and the way they deal with it is nothing short of inspirational.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going into the house, I'm about 6'4". Coming out, I'm about 6'6". It's just an amazing thing to be able to be a part of. And so if anybody has the ability to volunteer at a house, to come in and cook a dinner, you'll get to hear the stories of the people staying there, and you're going to walk out a little bit taller.
Oh, I love that. Well, and I know that the Fisher House isn't just for adults. I know that Jessica Allen, when her husband was injured, and she's going to be a guest on the series, I know that she talked about that's where they stayed with her girls, and that the girls, that it was a safe place for them to be able to continue being children during a very challenging life, and that they saw their dad, but they're like, they saw the Fisher House, and I've seen the story, and they're like, okay, can we go play? And I think that's what I mean by a safe place. When children feel safe to continue being children, even during the hard times for the adults, because they may not comprehend what's going on. That's so important.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times we worry more about how children are going to react than what we should, because there were a lot of people who gave a limb in service.
Yeah.
And so that first time they see their father, their mother without a limb, you wonder how they're going to react. And I remember one story of one parent who was the wife was explaining to their child, now Daddy has lost a leg and he doesn't look the same, and the child came in the room and just gave a great big hug, and it's like, but it's still Daddy, and that's the most important thing. And during the conflict, when there were a lot of people in the house with had either given a limb in service or had become disfigured in some way. Mm-hmm. The home provided that environment where they could be themselves without the sense of, okay, everybody's looking at me. Yeah. They're judging me for the way I look and because I look different. Well, everybody looked a little different.
Yeah.
And it was a source of I hope, comfort and strength for each of them.
So, David, I know we would be remiss not to talk about the other things that the Fisher House does.
It's not just the home. Fisher House Foundation does so many
So
more
much.
things. And let me just ask this. While you all want to hit as many places as possible, you all have been thoughtful in your partners so that if you don't have a Fisher House in an area, you have a mileage program with the airlines and the hotels. I'd love to hear more about that. Who those
We
partners are.
do. You know, we've learned a lot from the people who've graced the houses, and one of those is the barrier of transportation. You know, after the war started, the government would bring up to 3 members of a family in to support the wounded service member. Well, number one, families don't come in threes.
No.
And you know, the other part of that is you get that call, you go, you get there, you don't turn off the stove, you don't turn off the water, you just get. And so you get there and you see that your loved one might have a long recovery ahead, but then you also think about the stove and the water, and they would go and ask somebody in the Army, hey, can I go on and get back home? I need to check on these things. Sure, we can get you back home. Well, they were intending to go home just for a brief visit and come back to support their loved one. But the coordinator didn't quite tell them, well, when you fly back, the support from the military ends. And so we use donated frequent flyer miles to provide the flights in between so that they wouldn't lose the benefits, but they could go and take care of their business. You mentioned Jessica. When Chaz was first injured, she did not want the children to see him at his worst.
Right.
And so she would switch out with her mother, his mother, with one of their mothers to come in so that somebody was always with Chaz. But at the same time, the girls could stay in school and have minimal disruption to their life until he was well enough for them to really see and visit.
Right.
And it was just instrumental, and it's given us the ability to make the experience one where it was possible for families to be there. Because if you lose your benefits, that's another issue. People have given up incomes to be there.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And so we're pleased to be able to do that. And we've done, nearly 85,000 round trip flights.
Wow.
And we've also used those miles to partner with other organizations to make them more effective. Last year, we helped more than 40 other nonprofits who, rather than spend money on travel and their core program, if we help them out with the travel, remove the barrier of transportation, it lets them focus on what they do well. Right. And everybody focuses, and there's just a purity of purpose between the two.
Yeah.
We learned that, if it works for airlines, maybe it'll work for hotels. And it did. And so we're pleased to be able to help people and either help them participate in another organization's program that will help them on their journey of recovery. Or sometimes traffic accidents happen and the right place to receive care is not where there's a Fisher House.
Yeah.
And so we can help those families as well.
Wow. Now we're going into the season of giving. And so we want to say that Delta and United will be matching miles in November. Is that correct? Is that a promo that they're doing?
It should start right around Veterans Day.
Okay. That's what we wanted to make sure.
And should go through the month.
Okay.
One of the challenges we have is that we don't know who gives the miles. We're always grateful. The airlines want to protect their security, but there's also tremendous power in community, and you don't have to give 30,000 miles or 50,000 miles. 1,000 miles makes a difference, because
Right.
there are hundreds and thousands of others doing the same, and it helps us meet the next need.
Wow. And all the information we'll have about donating miles and your hotel points, we'll have that in our notes and everything, David, because we love that. If you can't give, a monetary contribution, I think that's a great way, because I have points that I know I'm not going to use on certain things. And I'm like, well, somebody can use them. So we love that concept. But now you guys also, in addition to that, you do service awards, you do scholarships for military children. I just want to make sure people know that you guys are so much more. You are an unbelievable foundation. Can you tell us a little bit about those two things?
Well, with the Fisher Service Award, it originally started with Paul Newman,
Mm-hmm.
and through Newman's own,
Mm-hmm.
all of his proceeds would go to charity. And as he got into the commissary system, he says, "Well, I want to support a good military nonprofit." And the Fisher House was mentioned, and he came to us and said, "How can I help?" Well, in talking with them, one of the challenges they had done a contest where enter this contest, and it was with a national retail place, and you can give away 500,000. And they only had hundreds of entries across the country. And their research showed, well, if we have to give it away, we don't want to compete. Well, one of the challenges we have is being only at the major military medical centers. We're supporting a force that's deployed worldwide.
Right.
So we talked to them and said, well, how about if we work with you? We'll have people tell us about a problem in their community, and we'll help meet that need. And so it started out as the Newman's Own Award. When Paul passed away, it transitioned to the Fisher Service Award. And as you start to be successful, there's a temptation to try to be all things to all people, and you
Right.
just can't do that.
Right.
But by doing this, we get to recognize and support people with great ideas, get a little visibility, a lot of awareness for what they do. And at the end of the day, we're all united by our love for the military and veterans community.
Right.
And by encouraging them, we're giving them the opportunity to have the success that we were blessed with.
Wow. Wow.
Well, and that grant program opens on October 25th, which is fantastic. We'll make sure that we put that, because our campaign for this series starts October 23rd. So we will make sure to put that to all of our folks and share that. So I think, the more ideas and the more, that's the biggest thing, is that, I had someone, a representative from Vantage Point Foundation in South Carolina, met those folks. They're going to be on the series. And she was saying she and her husband, both military and Marines. We won't hold that against them, David. And so, since we're Army, but she was saying, there's so much support, but when you transition out, it's hard to kind of navigate after you've transitioned out. And so I think what you're doing here, being able to identify nonprofits that support them, and they're a nonprofit along with Upstate Warrior Solutions in South Carolina, met those folks. There's what happens after. And so you guys are meeting a purpose, and you're right. You can't be all things to everyone, but you sure can partner with someone to help with continuity so that it makes it a little bit easier as you're trying to navigate during a crisis.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing, the judges for the Fisher Service Award are senior military spouses.
Oh.
And so it educates them about what's happening in the community.
Mm.
And so there are several layers to this onion.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's like the admiral's wife, a lot of those spouses have a lot of play, so.
We're not afraid to go over the admiral's head.
That's exactly right.
Well,
Wow.
and there's also, Jay, I want to point out one more, there's two more things I really want to hit on. Scholarships for military children will open in December. Tell us a little bit more about the scholarships.
Well, we actually have 3 scholarship programs, and we were at an event, and the general was talking to the crowd and said, rather than have a giveaway and give a raft or a new car, let's do something that would be support the military community. And he had the idea of scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
And so our commitment was we would provide at least one scholarship per commissary to help recognize the efforts and support the children of those who serve.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the program has always been much bigger than that. And our commitment was that we would handle all the admin expenses. So every dollar donated would go out as a dollar in scholarship.
Mm.
And we've been able to give out, instead of 130 scholarships per commissary, we've always been able to do about 500.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Rather than give a large scholarship, we give a $2,000 scholarship. And we do that because in many military communities, I don't know how it was in your high school, but the top 5 kids got all the scholarships.
Yes.
And so by capping it, we can go deeper into the bench. And
that.
The idea is to be a blessing to more families.
Yeah.
President Obama came to us and said, well, I want to do something special for those whose children have been killed or become 100% disabled since 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started the Heroes Legacy Scholarship.
Mm.
And that's one where every child who qualifies in that area gets a scholarship.
Mm.
And this past year, we've given out $1.4 million in scholarships there. And then in thinking about impacting the military family, there's nothing better than supporting the spouses. They have to move every few years.
Yeah.
That brings its own challenges in terms of finishing school. And so rather than create our own program, we saw what the National Military Family Association was doing through their spouse scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
And we are the biggest funder of that program. And if you want to change the direction, the opportunities for a family, help educate the spouse.
Mm.
Help them get their career, and that will have a lasting benefit that goes far beyond the cost of a scholarship.
Mm.
So we're very proud of those programs and the difference that it makes to those families.
Wow. And here's my favorite, and we talked about it before we got on, David. When I learned that of course, you guys would be connected to the Invictus Games. And, I love the Olympics. I'm thinking about them for, next year when they're coming around. It's about time for them to come around again. But the Invictus Games are just so special. Tell us a little bit more how you guys are connected to the Invictus Games, because you all just came back at the end of September from the Invictus Games in Germany, I believe.
We did. And we had heard about the very first Department of Defense Warrior Games.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a great event. This was, oh my gosh, a long time ago.
I like that. It was a minute.
It was, it seems like yesterday, but it used to be that at the U.S. Olympic Training Center, DOD would come in, the Department of Defense, and they wanted to have a competition because, so often when somebody was wounded, they would get essentially a cocktail of drugs that would take away the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd go into this mode where they were just existing.
Yeah.
And for so many in the military, it's sports that gets you working to improve yourself. You go around the track, and the next time you do it, you're 20 seconds faster, and it gives you a sense of accomplishing something, and that success just eases over into all areas of your life, your relationship with your spouse, your relationship with others, the confidence you have in yourself. And so we knew the Warrior Games was something special. That first year, it was just the Warriors participating and a few families. And so we said, you know what? Every family deserves the right to be there. They've been on the journey of recovery. They deserve to celebrate. So starting with that second year, we brought in two friends and or family to be a part of it, to witness, to encourage, to share in the experience. And Prince Harry came and saw that in 2013 because the United Kingdom had a team participating as well. And he said, you know, this is something that ought to be international. And so in 2014, he hosted the first games in London, and we wanted to support the U.S. team. And so we offered that. And as we learned more about it and thought about it, it says, you know, America has a responsibility to show other countries how you should treat your veterans.
Right.
You know, and this is a chance for us to do that on an international stage. And so we're privileged to have been a part of Invictus Games from its inception.
Wow.
And we're the only organization to do that. And the difference it makes, and it has now grown to 20 countries and participating, 600 athletes. And what you witness there, I mean, people will go out there. My favorite sport is swimming. And the buzzer goes off. They get in the water. Everybody does their best. The first person touches, and the place just gets louder and louder until the last person does.
Wow.
And when you swim, you swim with what you've got left. And when you see a triple amputee out there swimming and competing, it is just an amazing experience. And to be able to be a part of not only, you know, seeing it is enough, but to be able to help the family be there and be a part, and the appreciation they have for the struggle and the accomplishment and the celebration is something special, and we're very proud to be a part of it.
You know, David, when you first came on, I will say, you said you say to your staff, it's a good day to be in the blessing business. And you have definitely blessed us today.
I think so as well.
Just learning what you do, it's been a blessing for us to find out about it. And I hope that the people that hear the story and what you all do will share the message, military family or not, because the message and what the foundation does, it should definitely be heard. It is wonderful. And you guys are wonderful.
Well, thank you. And we are privileged to be able to do what we do. When the program started, it was a gift from Zachary and Elizabeth Fisher. Today, it's a gift from the American people. And I can't tell you, you know, going overseas and in Germany, the senior military are so envious of the support Americans give and provide. And again, we're pleased to represent. It's a tremendous privilege, but we recognize. I might have told Mr. Fisher it's brilliant leadership, but the truth is it's who we serve. People have such a deep love and respect for the men and women who serve that they want to be a part, and they want to know that their money's going to a good place, their resources going to a good place that makes a difference. And we are blessed that they often choose Fisher House as that mode of making a difference.
Well, you know what? We are, like JJ said, I want to echo that. We are so blessed to have this conversation with you today. And I know that this information we're going to, you know, share it far and wide. And I know that you've got lots of partners. I'm going to hit on a couple of things. Delta and United, you can donate your miles, but they'll also be matching. I'm actually flying Delta tonight to a conference. So I'm like, those miles would go a long way. And so it sounds like there's another airline that I know of. I'd love for them to jump on because that's who I typically fly. But now that I know Delta and United play, good to know, because social responsibility, it's important. And then the hotel. So we're going to make sure that in the show notes and on the website, we'll make sure all of these awesome benefits, ways that you can give back, whether you're volunteering, it sounds like time, talent, resource is what you guys would be happy to have. So whether it's financial resources or volunteering to spend time, sounds like there's a lot of ways that you can engage with the Fisher houses to be a blessing to other people. So David, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, David.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much.